I'm Aaron Rutten, and in this video, I'm going to demonstrate how to use the 3 new brushes I created for Corel Painter in January of 2020. You can download these brushes from aaronrutten.com. The first brush that I'll demonstrate is found in my watercolor category. It's called Heavy Dab Stencil Flow. Now I'm going to be painting on watercolor paper here. This is a real art template that I created. You can download these on my website. But long story short, it just looks like watercolor paper when I paint on it. I'm painting on a watercolor layer here, and this brush is really cool. If we paint with it, then you can see I get this dab stencil pattern, but if I stop painting, you can see the paint kind of flows down a little bit and collects inside the flow map, but it also creates kind of a 3-dimensional texture at the same time. Let's go ahead and try that again. I'll paint a little bit, and I'll lift my pen up, and you can see the paint kind of trickle and flow down. It's really cool. Now, of course, I can blend other colors into this as well. I could bring in some blue and kind of mix it in. If I keep building it up, it just gets darker and darker as watercolor paint would. We can also select a different flow map from up here in the properties bar. So for example, if I select fine dots, now when I paint, my paint is going to pool and collect into that dotted pattern, but it still has that nice 3-dimensional texture to it. Let's try a different flow map here. Let's try this horizontal flow. And this time I'm going to make my brush smaller. And I can kind of paint with this to create little drips and drizzles and things like that. Or I could select a brown color. And if I wanted to, I could create kind of a tree bark effect by layering it up like this. So it gives you all this really nice texture in your brush. The next brush that we'll take a look at is also found in the watercolor category. It's called Grainy Dab Stencil Flow. This has some of the properties of the previous brush. I'll go ahead and set the flow map back to clouds. I'll go ahead and paint with this brush. And you can see I get that really nice texture from the dab stencil. If I change that to fine dots, then you can see that I get that kind of dotted pattern. Now right now I have a paper grain selected. This paper grain is simulated wood grain, and it has the scale and contrast turned all the way up. By default, you might be using basic paper. So if we paint with this brush, then it looks more like this. So the grain is really influencing the look of the paper here. If we change the grain to something like contrasty random cracks found in the Painter 2015 papers category, then you can see I get those cracked textures as I'm painting. So you can really get a lot of different looks out of this brush. And the third and final brush is found in my thick paint category. It's called Grainy Rake Knife. I'm going to go ahead and change my paper grain to simulated wood grain, and I have the scale and contrast all the way up for this particular paper texture. Now if I paint with this brush, then I get this nice broken paint effect, but the brush itself has kind of a rake profile or just a few very obvious bristles. So you might use this for splashing water, or maybe even a waterfall that kind of comes down like this. Or you could use it to put in little ripple details on the water. If you're using a brownish color, then you might use it to put in stones and dirt and things like that, or maybe tree bark. Now you may notice that I'm able to rotate the angle of the dab. That's because I'm using the Wacom Art Pen, so I can get all kinds of nice effects here with this brush. Now the paint is thick because this is a thick paint brush, so I can kind of scrape away at it as well. If you don't have the Wacom Art Pen, you could also change the angle of the brush by changing the angle property expression to tilt if your pen supports pen tilt. So there you go, those are the 3 new brushes I created for Corel Painter in January 2020. You can download these brushes at aaronrutten.com, and if you're interested in checking out some of my other demonstrations of brushes, I'll link you to those at the end of this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.